Act 2 of episodes Echoes has begun. We've got new content in the form of Echoes Battlegrounds, we've got new story missions, diving deeper into the Vex mysteries and Saint 14, as well as new weapons to chase, including the first ever solar rocket sidearm that is sure to be meta for a long time, right there alongside its Strand and Arc brothers. Now, because a new chapter in this episodic seasonal model has hit, we've put together another guide going over everything you need to know about Act 2. We're talking the best way to farm the 2 new Vex-themed weapons, since the ability to focus them for red borders is unfortunately time-gated. We've got a quest guide for you, optimization strats, and more. So let's dive in. Now, first off, it's very important that you have Echoes Act 1 completed, because you cannot access Act 2 or even begin the Act 2 quest until you finish all of Act 1. Now, if you have not caught up or done any of that, feel free to check out our original guide on Echoes Act 1. But if you have, then as soon as you load into the game, you can then head to the tower to speak with Ikora to obtain the Act 2 quest, A Rising Course. You'll also have a new cutscene that you can watch. Now, the first step of this quest asks you to complete the brand new Delve Battleground activity, which is match made and can be found within the director on Nessus. This version of the Battleground has no champions. However, when you do normally launch this in the Echoes Battleground playlist, there will be champions present in both the standard and the expert versions. Now, keep in mind, guys, these Battlegrounds are like a mini strike. The ad density on them is pretty insane, and it's not something you really notice in the quest version of these Battlegrounds, but if you attempt to do the expert version, this activity is challenging. So much so that I think that whenever they do make this into a Grandmaster Nightfall, it's going to be one of the most challenging Grandmasters in the game. Even on Expert, our team was getting press. This is with me using some of my best loadouts. I also really like how all 3 of these Battlegrounds, which only 2 of them are present this week, seamlessly run together. It's literally us diving into the depths of Nessus, hence why the 3rd Battleground will be named Core. But back to the Delve Battleground. Once you completed this Battleground, you get a super long quest step that basically just boils down to you collecting more samples from Echo activities. These are the plants that we've been picking up during the entirety of this episode so far. Now, I just loaded right back into the Echoes Battleground to finish it out. There have been some people on Reddit and Twitter who have had issues completing this step within the other Echo activities. Also, make sure your destination material ghost mods are on so you can detect those resources, and of course keep an eye out for those pistons to activate. Now, in the Battlegrounds themselves, those pistons are actually located in between the areas where you are going to be fighting, and they're pretty noticeable. I feel like Bungie's done a pretty good job of making them much more visible. Now, as you collect these samples, you'll sometimes obtain Vex code munitions, and once you have enough, the quest step will complete. Now, once you gather all the munitions, you'll be able to head back to Felsafe to install a brand new upgrade. Then you can speak with her. She'll give you a tuned radiolite sampler. This is essentially an upgrade to the sampler we got at the beginning of Act 1. Now, with this sampler, you'll be able to find greater variety of sample types as well as store a larger amount at once. Felsafe will also give you a new Specimen Quest, which we're going to go over here in just a second. Now, as for the next story quest step, you'll now need to complete the new Conduit Battleground, which can once again be found on Nessus. And after this, guys, it's super straightforward. Return to the helm and speak with Saint at the Holo Projector, and then you'll have a radio message to listen to, which really adds to the story here. But that's it narratively for this week. With that being said, though, we still have the Specimen Quest. The first step of this tasks you with opening chests at the end of the Echoes activity. You've got multiple options here. You're looking at having to run around 5 Echo Battlegrounds, that being standard or experts, or you can run the expert breach executable. Now, guys, if you have a competent enough team, you can do this, because at the very end, you have multiple chests to open instead of just one, essentially meaning you'll be gaining more progress per run. And with a good enough squad, you can pretty much do this in about 15 minutes. Just make sure you hit those pistons, always try to go for platinum. That way you can open up all the chests at the end. At the same time, if you're looting primarily the 2 new weapons that are dropping with Act 2, that being the Aberrant Action and the Corrasion Pulse Rifle, I actually found their drop chances to be higher in the Battleground activity. So something to just keep in mind, guys. Originally, I was really rushing to do the Specimen Quest because I thought that this quest was going to allow me to focus these weapons, but that's not the case. However, if you are just looking to just get done with the Specimen Quest fast, then multiple chests from Breach Executable is the way to go. Now, once you finish this step, you'll now have to focus 5 Echo Engrams into Echo gear at Felsafe. Now, if you're Engram deprived, you can actually just focus it on your armor. I know the weapon ones cost 2 apiece, and that's fine too if you've got enough Engrams, but the random armor Engrams only cost 1, and you could just do 5 of those if you want, and that will knock out this step. With that being said though, if you actually randomly focus your weapon Engrams, that will cost you 2 Engrams, but at the same time, there's a chance that you're gonna get a red border Aberrant Action or even a red border Corrasion. Now after doing this, you'll have 1 step left, which is to extract data in Breach Executable, and then defeat powerful combatants in the Echo's Battleground. Now for some reason, you can actually complete this step in just a single Battlegrounds run, so you don't even need to do both activities. Not really sure why this is, but it only took us a single Echo's Battleground, and we knocked this all out. After that, all you gotta do is just speak to Failsafe for your reward, which will be the mirrored encrypted Hydra Tail specimen. You'll be able to add this to your collection, and this will give you a armor reputation booster. The booster provides 100% additional reputation earned through this seasonal armor perk, which is really nice, guys. Personally, I think getting reputation gains here is pretty quick as it is, but that buff from that Hydra Tail is no joke. Now this takes us to Aberrant Action and Corrasion. Unfortunately, even after finishing this Specimen Quest, you are not able to focus these weapons. Like our other Echo weapons, you could spend 4 Engrams and focus a weapon individually, therefore giving you a higher chance of getting not only that weapon with the God roll, but also the red border version of that weapon to then allow you to craft it once you obtain 5 red borders. Really what it's going to come down to if you're trying to get these weapons this week is RNG. With that being said though, I do think that the Battleground activity, especially on Expert, has a higher chance of dropping these 2 weapons. And I know Breach Executable has those extra chests at the end, and it has the weapon that's over the chest that allows you to pull those weapons directly. However, it's RNG on which weapon you get at the end for those chests. And I found the multiple times that I ran Breach Executable, I just didn't have those weapons over those chests. Now, Battlegrounds, you don't have the ability to choose your loot at the end. But for some reason, I felt like I was getting a red border just about every single time I was running it. And it would make sense that the new activity would have a higher chance of dropping the new weapons. So let's go over how to fully optimize this Battleground activity to get through it the most effectively, especially on Experts, and to get the most loot at the end. Now, firstly, I did want to mention that we're only going to be breaking down Delve here. For some reason, when loading into the playlist activity, this is the only Battleground that we can get this week despite playing Conduit during our Act 2 quest line. I'm not sure if this is like on a weekly rotation or something, guys, or if this is just something bugging out for me. With that being said though, let's break down Delve. Here you'll load right onto the surface of Nessus, an area that I think many of you are familiar with, but of course, this version has been altered. You'll be tasked with recovering 9 fallen data to lower the barrier ahead. You'll be fighting fallen dregs, arc-shielded captains, and let me just say, everything here is thick, man, especially on Expert. These enemies will be periodically dropped off from fallen catches, so make sure you take out the guns on those ships. You'll also have a huge yellow bar named Calyx, Baron of House Dust, to deal with. This guy's got a big scorch cannon that will light you up, so watch out for it. Now eventually when you do enough damage, they'll spawn out, and you'll see this guy in every part of the Battleground until you defeat him at the very end. Now as you slay out, eventually a catch will appear that will drop off 2 shanks and a yellow bar servitor called Data Safeguard. You kill all 3 of these enemies and they'll each drop a fallen data. Now sometimes these enemies will be accompanied by a second servitor that's a barrier champion. So for Delve here, guys, definitely have something available to deal with barrier and overload champions. Also, the catches spawn in around the area, not just in one spot, so you'll be moving around a bit to locate them. That being said though, the data shanks and servitors have diamonds over them, so they're easy to spot from anywhere. Just keep slaying out until you've collected all 9 fallen data. Then the barrier will lower and you can follow the diamond forward into the tower. Now, once you hit the first big drop down area into the Well of Flame, be on the lookout for samples. This is why having your detector mod on your ghost is really important, but there should be at least 1 before you go through the first portal. Then on the other side of the portal, there will immediately be a piston, which is very easy to miss if you and your teammates are racing through. Activate this piston with your hammer, which will then unearth the other samples around this area. These pistons are where the bulk of your samples will come from, so you need to hit these to get the max amount of rewards when you bank them at the end. Now the next combat room has a bunch of Vex imprisoned by the Fallen. Taking out the yellow bar Unrelenting Servitor will lower the shields, letting the Vex out. Now you'll have mostly Vex goblins here and a couple of void shielded minotaurs, as well as our good old Baron friend from the last encounter as well. Once Failsafe announces that the Vex are moving in on your position, all the Vex enemies come out to play. Most enemies will spawn around the outer edges of the room near the wall. You'll have goblins, minotaurs, etc. exploders, yellow boar wyverns, which by the way teleport and do all kinds of crazy stuff, cyclopses on high pedestals. Fellas, you absolutely need to have a concussive dampener mod on, max resilience, and at least one void resist mod on. Now throughout this, overload minotaurs will also be spawning in, but the entire encounter is just you slaying out. There's no real mechanics. There will be some samples you can pick up in the room though, so make sure you pick those up. Outside of that, guys, literally just have your best builds. I'm rocking one of my favorite Titan builds in the game, and the goal for your build in this encounter is just to slay out, but not just something that can slay out normal run-of-the-mill ads. You need something that can melt high health targets, and we'll probably end up collecting somewhere between 5 and 6 builds that really pop off inside of these battlegrounds. But you can also just look at any of our previous build battle videos and utilize any of those builds. But even though that's GM level content, battlegrounds here will still offer a lot of difficulty simply because of the ad density. Now, once everything is dead though, the center plate will activate and open up for you to drop down to then begin exploring the caverns. Here you'll immediately see the Baron again, with the Servitor and more Vex trapped in a cage. The Baron will eventually spawn out, and once the Servitor and Vex are taken care of, the next barrier blocking your way will lower. Now through here, be on the lookout for more samples and another piston to slam. Once again, they'll show up as diamonds, so you don't miss them. Keep making your way through the caverns, watching out for trip mine traps and samples as you move. You'll eventually get to a rally banner and the final encounter. Here you'll drop down to begin the real fights, this being with Calyx, Baron of House Dusk. In the beginning of this encounter, Calyx will be standing on top of an imprisoned Vex, and some Fallen will be nearby as well. Calyx will become immune once the first small segment of his health bar is depleted. You'll then need to eliminate the Siphon Servitors that spawn in off the catches. There will be a total of 3, one left, one right, and one in the middle. You can split your team up, but I will say in the expert version of this, you may want to consolidate and just take out one side at a time. Now, these servitors will also be accompanied by other fallen enemies as well. But once all 3 are slain, the 3 Vex portals in the room will activate, allowing Vex to pour in, and Calyx shield will lower, allowing you to deal damage to them. Barrier hobgoblins will also spawn in, so be prepared to pop some shields, guys. Honestly, you may want to kill them before dealing with Calyx, but once Calyx is defeated, a new boss will then spawn in on the opposite side of the arena. There will also be an overload champion, some other Vex, a yellow bar compelled aggressor wyvern that you'll need to eliminate, and they will come at you pretty aggressively. Upon getting this Vex mine to have health though, it'll teleport and then more Vex will start pouring in. Here you have to deal with the same enemies as before, another compelled aggressor wyvern, but if you're right up here against the portal, it'll be a much more confined space. You just got to deal with these enemies and then finish off the boss's health bar, and that's it. That's the battleground. You'll then get a chest with a bunch of drops on top of all the rewards you'll get when depositing those samples that you've been collecting throughout the battleground. This will net you with a bunch of different drops, guys, and in my opinion, it's the best way to farm for the new Corrasion pulse rifle and the new Aberrant Action sidearm. Now, the last note I want to make for this Act 2 guide, Perfect Paradox is currently time gated. Nobody seems to have acquired it yet. We've literally run echo activities with no luck. And I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be tied to Saint 14 himself. When we think about how we first obtained Perfect Paradox, it's probably going to be something along those lines. And since Saint 14 himself is such a prominent focus in this episode, we're probably going to go down a similar path. Now, for those trying to get the craftable version of Aberrant Action or even Corrasion, again, your best bet is just to farm a bunch of Engrams. And even though you can't focus them directly for a single individual weapon, you can focus it on the weapon selection. Now, a great way to get reputation very, very fast with failsafe is just to wear the Echo's armor. The Echo's armor, guys, has the perk Echoes of Glory, and this grants 10% additional failsafe vendor reputation from all sources. It states that for each piece of armor equipped with this perk, this bonus increases to a maximum of 30%, that being from 3 pieces. And it says that the class item from the set will contribute as though you are wearing 3 pieces. It's a huge note if you don't want to change your loadout too much. Considering NES 004, the Hydra specimen tail that we brought up earlier, tacks on even more reputation gains. Guys, this is an excellent way to literally just give yourself tons of rep gain, and you'll be swimming in Engrams. Another way to get Engrams, guys, is literally just go through your season pass. There are tons of Echo Engrams that if you haven't picked up, you can pick them up right here. And last but not least, if you have any deep sight harmonizers, you can pull those and consume them on any of these weapon drops, thus allowing you to convert them into a red border weapon. Keep in mind, you can't do it to a weapon that was already originally a red border drop. I'll also say that deep sight harmonizers are pretty rare, so don't really like to use them. With that being said, you can always access old season passes, and you can check out our video on that in the description down below, where essentially you just download an extension from Mozilla Firefox, then go to Season Pass and access previous seasons of Destiny. And yes, you can go in there and pull everything, including deep side harmonizers. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much the only way you're going to get red borders for either of these weapons. If you wait until next week, we'll of course have the opportunity to individually focus for these weapons. In the meantime, guys, enjoy Battlegrounds. I'm actually having a great time playing it. It has a ton of challenge that I think many of you will enjoy. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.